There is a particular moment in life that separates who you used to be from who you are becoming. It does not arrive with warning. It does not announce itself with drama. It shows up quietly, almost casually, in the form of people laughing at something you deeply believe in. You know that moment you open your mouth to share an idea, something you've been carrying in your mind for days, maybe years. Something that kept you awake at night, something that made your heart beat faster when you first imagined it. You finally speak it out loud, expecting even a small spark of understanding, and instead you get laughter. Not the kind of laughter that celebrates you, not the kind that supports you, but the kind that dismisses you without even trying to understand you. And in that instant, something inside you freezes. You don't show it, but you feel it. You feel the shift in the room. You notice how quickly your vision becomes a joke in someone else's eyes. You notice how easily something sacred to you becomes entertainment for someone else. And you start questioning yourself in silence. Maybe I said it wrong. Maybe I should have waited. Maybe they are right. Maybe it is too much for me. That is the first fracture, not in your dream, but in your confidence. Because laughter from others does not destroy your dream immediately. It plants a question inside you. And if that question grows, it begins to rewrite how you see yourself. But here is what most people never realize in that moment. You are not being judged for what you are. You are being judged for what they cannot yet see. People rarely respond to potential with understanding. They respond with limitation. They project what they know onto what they don't understand. And if your vision is bigger than their experience, they will try to shrink it until it fits inside their comfort. But your vision was never meant to fit. So in that moment, when the laughter hits, you stand at a silent crossroads. You either absorb it, let it enter your identity, let it settle into your self-belief, or you do something far more powerful. You observe it. You separate yourself from it. You understand that their reaction is not a reflection of your limit, but of their perspective. And something begins to change inside you. At first, it hurts. Of course it hurts. You are human. You wanted encouragement, not dismissal. You wanted belief, not doubt. But pain has a strange quality. It either weakens you or sharpens you. And this is where your transformation quietly begins. Because after the laughter fades, something else remains. Silence. And in that silence, your mind starts replaying the moment again and again. But this time, something different happens. Instead of just feeling the pain, you start analyzing it. You start asking deeper questions. Why did that affect me so strongly? Why do I need their approval to believe in myself? Why does their laughter feel heavier than my conviction? And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to detach your dream from their opinion. That is the shift most people never reach. Because most people live their entire lives adjusting their dreams to avoid laughter. They shrink their ideas before anyone can reject them. They edit their ambitions before anyone can question them. They become careful with their imagination, as if dreaming too big is a mistake. But the ones who rise do something different. They remember the laughter, but they do not obey it. They carry it, but they do not carry its meaning. They let it burn for a moment, and then they use that burn as fuel. And suddenly, what was meant to break them becomes the reason they build differently. Because there is something powerful about being underestimated. Because there is something powerful about being underestimated. It removes the pressure of expectation and replaces it with freedom. When people do not believe in you, you stop performing for them. You stop chasing approval. You stop living carefully. And in that space, something rare is born, authentic determination. You stop asking, will they accept this? And start asking, will this make me better? That is where real growth begins. So that moment, they laughed. It was not the end of your confidence. It was the beginning of your independence. It was the beginning of your independence. It was the first time life quietly showed you that not everyone deserves access to your belief system. And if you are someone who has felt that moment, if you remember the sound of disbelief when you shared something meaningful, if you remember the silence that followed your courage, then understand this clearly. You were not being stopped. You were being separated from distraction. Pain has a strange way of introducing itself. It does not knock like a guest you are ready for. It does not ask permission. It walks straight into your life, sits down in your silence, and forces you to look at things you would rather avoid. And the first instinct of a human being is to run from it, to distract from it, to pretend it is not there, because pain feels like loss. Pain feels like failure. Pain feels like something is going wrong. But what if I told you nothing is going wrong? What if I told you that pain is not a signal that your life is falling apart, but a signal that something inside you is being rearranged for strength? Because every level of growth demands a certain kind of discomfort. You do not become stronger in comfort. You do not become sharper in ease. You do not become wiser in silence without struggle. Pain is the tool life uses when it refuses to let you remain the same person. Think about it clearly. The moments that shaped you the most were not your easiest days. They were the days you did not understand what was happening, but you kept moving anyway. The days you felt heavy inside, but still showed up. The days you smiled in public while fighting silent battles no one knew about. That is where real development happens. And here is what most people never realize. Pain does not arrive to destroy you. It arrives to reveal you. Because when everything is comfortable, you never truly meet yourself. You live on autopilot, you follow patterns, you repeat habits, but when pain enters your life, it interrupts everything. It forces reflection, it strips away distraction, it demands honesty, and suddenly you are face to face with yourself, not the version you show the world, not the version you wish to be, but the real version, the version that has been hiding under excuses, fears, and hesitation. And that meeting is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Because in that discomfort, something begins to change. You start to notice your limits, not to accept them, but to understand them. And understanding is the first step toward breaking them. There is a moment in every person's journey when they realize something powerful. I am not weak, I am untrained, I am not incapable, I am untested, I am not finished, I am unfinished. And that realization changes everything. Because now pain is no longer an enemy, it becomes information. It shows you where you need to grow. It shows you what needs to be strengthened. It shows you what you have been avoiding. And if you listen closely, pain begins to teach you discipline. It teaches you how to continue when motivation disappears. It teaches you how to stay steady when emotions collapse. It teaches you how to build structure when everything feels unstable. And yes, there are moments when it feels too much. Moments when you sit alone and wonder why things had to get so hard. Moments when your mind tells you to quit, to escape, to choose something easier. But here's the truth most people avoid. If you run from pain every time it appears, you also run from your growth every time it arrives. So pause for a moment and think about your own life. Think about what you have been avoiding. Think about the situations you keep postponing because they feel uncomfortable. Think about the conversations you delay because they feel heavy. Think about the discipline you avoid because it feels demanding. Now ask yourself, what is that avoidance costing you? Because pain does not disappear when ignored. It accumulates, it waits, and eventually it demands attention in a louder form. But when you face it early, when you sit with it, instead of escaping it, something powerful happens. You begin to transform it. Pain becomes direction. Struggle becomes structure. Pressure becomes strength. And slowly you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this building inside me? That shift alone separates those who remain stuck from those who rise. Because every strong person you admire has one thing in common. They did not avoid pain. They used it, they learned from it, they allowed it to shape them instead of define them. And now in your own journey, you stand in that same position, not at the end, not at the peak, but in the middle of becoming. And if you are still here, still listening, still feeling something inside you resist giving up, that is not random. That is recognition. Something inside you knows you are being shaped right now. There comes a point in life when everything inside you feels quiet, not peaceful, but empty. The fire that once pushed you forward feels like it has faded. The motivation that used to wake you up in the morning feels distant. Even your goals, the things that once made your heart race, now feel heavy just to think about. And this is where most people misunderstand themselves. They think this is the end of their strength. They think something is broken inside them. They think they have lost what made them special. But in reality, this is not the end of your strength. This is the moment your strength is being tested in its purest form. Because its strength is not measured when everything is working in your favor. Real strength is revealed when nothing is left to support you except your own decision to continue. When motivation disappears, that is when truth appears. And the truth is simple but uncomfortable. You were never meant to rely on feelings to carry your future. Feelings change, energy shifts. Emotions rise and fall. If your entire direction depends on how you feel in the moment, then your future will always be unstable. So life creates a moment where feelings stop helping you, and suddenly you are standing there with nothing but your discipline, your habits, and your will. And that is where the real identity is formed, because anyone can move forward when they feel inspired. Anyone can chase a dream when energy is high. Anyone can post, plan, and promise when excitement is present. But when everything goes silent, when no one is clapping, when your mind is tired, when your body resists, when your heart says, stop, and you still take one step forward, that is where greatness begins. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and really feel this with me, viewer engagement. Think about the times you continued when you had no reason to continue. Think about the days you showed up when everything inside you said to quit. Think about the nights you stayed awake, not because you were motivated, but because something deeper inside you refused to give up. That version of you, that is the real you. Not the version that performs when life is easy, but the version that survives when life is silent. And here is what most people don't understand. They believe losing motivation means they are losing progress. But in truth, this is the phase where progress becomes invisible, because growth does not always announce itself. Sometimes it happens quietly. Sometimes it happens when you are tired. Sometimes it happens when you feel nothing at all. And if you quit during the silent phase, you never reach the visible results. This is why so many people start strong but finish nowhere. They depend on emotional fuel instead of internal structure. And the moment the fuel runs out, they assume the journey is over. But the journey was never meant to be fueled by emotion alone. It was meant to be powered by commitment. There will be days when you don't feel like improving, days when your mind negotiates with you, days when you convince yourself that resting a little longer won't hurt, and maybe it won't once. But repeated comfort slowly becomes delay, and delay slowly becomes distance from your own potential. And one day, you look back and wonder where your time went. This is why this phase matters so much. Because when you have nothing left, you are forced to decide who you are without excuses, without hype, without validation. Just you and your decision. And in that decision, something powerful is born: self-respect, the kind of self-respect that does not depend on results but on effort, the kind that comes from knowing you did not abandon yourself when things got hard, even if no one sees it, even if no one acknowledges it, even if no one understands it. You know, and that is enough to build a strong foundation for everything that comes next. Because the truth is, life does not reward those who feel ready. Life rewards those who refuse to stop when they don't feel ready. So if you are in that phase right now, if you feel like you have nothing left, understand this clearly. You are not empty. You are being refined. You are not losing strength. You are discovering a deeper kind of it. There is a stage in every meaningful journey that very few people talk about, because it doesn't look impressive from the outside. In fact, if someone were watching your life from a distance, they might think nothing is happening at all. No applause, no recognition, no visible progress, no validation, just repetition, just effort, just you showing up when no one is watching. And this is where most people make a quiet mistake. They assume that if something is not being seen, it is not being built. They assume that if progress is not being praised, it is not real. They assume that silence means stagnation, but silence is not stagnation. Silence is construction, because everything that is powerful in life is built before it is seen. Think about anything strong in this world. A foundation is laid before a building rises. Roots grow underground before a tree stands tall. Hours of unseen practice exist before a moment of public success. Nothing meaningful begins in the spotlight, and yet when people start their journey, they secretly expect the spotlight immediately. They expect recognition for effort before results even exist. They expect validation for intention instead of consistency. And when that validation doesn't come, they begin to question everything. But here is where something important must be understood. This phase is not designed to reward you. It is designed to shape you, because when nobody is watching, you reveal who you truly are. Not the version of you that performs for attention, not the version of you that rises with encouragement, but the version of you that continues even when there is no external reason to continue. And that version, that is the real foundation of everything you will become. Now I want you to imagine something with me. Viewer engagement. Picture yourself working on something that matters deeply to you. Maybe it's your goals, your craft, your discipline, your vision, and every day you show up, but nothing around you changes immediately. No one notices, no one reacts, no one applauds, and yet you continue. Not because it is easy, not because it feels rewarding, but because something inside you refuses to abandon what you started. That quiet decision to continue anyway, that is where most people separate. Because many will start, many will talk, many will dream, but only a few will stay in the room when the room is empty. And that emptiness is not punishment, it is protection. It protects your growth from distraction. It removes the noise of opinions. It strips away the need for approval so you can finally hear your own voice clearly. And in that silence, something begins to form inside you that cannot be built any other way. Discipline without emotion. This is the kind of discipline that does not depend on feeling motivated. It does not rely on energy or excitement. It simply exists because you decided that your actions will not be controlled by your mood. And once that level is reached, everything changes. Because now you are no longer waiting to feel ready. You are no longer any for the perfect moment. You are no longer waiting for someone to tell you it is time. You become the person who decides what happens next. And that is powerful. But make no mistake, this phase is not comfortable. There will be days when it feels like nothing is working, days when your effort feels invisible, even to yourself. Days when doubt whispers that maybe you are wasting time. And in those moments, quitting will look logical. It will look reasonable. It will even feel like relief, but relief is not always progress. Sometimes relief is retreat. And the people who transform their lives are not the ones who always feel strong. They are the ones who refuse to leave their post when strength feels absent. Because consistency in silence builds something that noise never can. Identity. You begin to identify yourself as someone who does not break routine easily. Someone who does not abandon commitment when it gets uncomfortable. Someone who stays when others would step away. And slowly, without even realizing it, that identity starts shaping your future decisions. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And start asking, is this what I said I would do? That shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Because feelings are temporary, but identity is long-term. And if you can survive this silent phase, if you can continue building when no one is clapping, if you can stay consistent when everything feels invisible, then something powerful is guaranteed. You are building a foundation that cannot easily be shaken. And one day, when the results finally appear, when the world finally notices, when people finally ask how it happened, they will only see the surface. But you will remember the silence. You will remember the repetition. You will remember the nights nobody saw and the mornings nobody praised. There is a moment in your journey that does not announce itself with celebration. It arrives quietly, almost like a whisper inside your own mind. No fireworks, no applause, no dramatic change in your surroundings. And yet everything inside you begins to shift. It is the moment you stop waiting for approval, waiting for permission, waiting for someone to finally say, yes, you can do it. Because up until this point, a part of you has been looking outward, watching faces, listening for opinions, measuring your progress through the lens of how others react to your effort. And as long as you live like that, you are not truly free. You are reacting, not leading, but then something happens inside you. It is not loud. It is not forced. It is a realization that grows slowly through every disappointment, every doubt, every silent moment where you showed up and no one acknowledged it. You start to understand something powerful. Nobody is coming to validate your journey in the way you expect. And instead of breaking you, that truth begins to free you. Because the need for approval is one of the heaviest weights a person can carry. It makes you hesitate before you move. It makes you second guess your instincts. It makes you dependent on reactions that are never guaranteed. But when that dependence starts to fade, you shift. And in that shift, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop performing your life for others and you start building it for yourself. Viewer engagement. Think about this honestly for a moment. How many times have you held back your potential, not because you couldn't do something, but because you were waiting to see how it would be received? How many ideas stayed unspoken because you were afraid they wouldn't be accepted? How many steps did you delay because you were waiting for reassurance that never came? Now imagine what your life would look like if you didn't wait anymore. That is the shift. It is not about becoming careless. It is about becoming certain. Certain that your direction does not require constant approval. Certain that your vision does not need to be understood by everyone to be valid if you saying does not need to be understood by everyone to be valid. Certain that your progress does not need to be witnessed to be real. And when that certainty begins to grow your energy chain as you stop over-explaining your decisions, you stop defending your dreams, you stop trying to convince people who were never meant to see your path clearly in the first place. Because not everyone is supposed to understand where you are going. Some people can only recognize results, not potential. Some people can only believe in you when the outcome is already visible, but you are no longer living for their recognition. You begin to move differently, with less hesitation, with more clarity, with a quiet confidence that does not need noise to exist. And here is the deeper truth: this shift does not make your journey easier. It makes you stronger within it. Because now, when doubt appears, it does not control you. When criticism arrives, it does not define you. When silence surrounds your effort, it does not discourage you. You are no longer measuring your steps through external reactions. You are measuring them through internal conviction, and that is where real power starts to form. There will still be moments of uncertainty, moments when the old version of you tries to return, whispering that maybe you should slow down, maybe you should wait, maybe you should check again if others agree. But you will notice something different now. You don't respond the same way anymore. You no longer collapse under doubt. You observe it, you acknowledge it, and then you continue anyway. That is the shift. It is the moment you become internally guided instead of externally controlled. And once you reach that stage, your discipline deepens. Not because someone is watching, but because you are aware. Not because someone is praising you, but because you respect your own word. Not because you need validation, but because you refuse to abandon yourself. That is the beginning of self-trust. And self-trust changes everything. Because when you trust yourself, you no longer negotiate with excuses. You no longer delay action for comfort. You no longer require perfect conditions to begin. You move because you said you would move, because you said you would move. And slowly, quietly, your life starts aligning with a version of you that no longer depends on external confirmation to exist. This is the shift most people never reach. Not because it is impossible, but because it requires letting go of something familiar, the need to be understood. But on the other side of that letting go is something far greater: freedom. There comes a moment in every journey where silence begins to break. Not the silence of the world, but the silence of the world, but the silence of results finally starting to show. And when that moment arrives, it never arrives politely. It arrives after struggle, after doubt, after nights when you questioned everything about yourself, and suddenly people begin to notice. The same people who once had opinions now begin to have questions. The same voices that once doubted you now become quieter. And the same eyes that once looked past you now start looking again, but differently this time, because results do something that words never can. They interrupt assumptions. Because results do something that words never can. They interrupt assumptions. But let me be clear with you right now. Viewer engagement, do not let this moment fool you, because this is one of the most dangerous turning points in your entire journey. This is the moment where everything you built in silence is finally being seen. But it is also the moment where many people lose what they built. Because when results begin to show, attention begins to follow. And when attention follows, distractions return. Now people want your time. Now people want your explanation. Now people want access to what they ignored when it was invisible. And if you are not careful, you begin to shift your focus from building to being seen building, and that shift is subtle. You won't notice it immediately. It doesn't to feel wrong at first. In fact, it feels good. It feels like recognition. It feels like validation. It feels like finally being understood. But underneath that feeling is a risk, because the same energy that built you in silence is now being pulled in different directions. You have to understand something very deeply here. Attention is not the same as progress. Praise is not the same as discipline. Recognition is not the same as growth. And if you begin to feed your ego more than your effort, you slowly start to lose the foundation that brought you here in the first place. Think about it. Viewer engagement. How many people have you seen reach a level of success only to slowly lose consistency once people started watching them? How many people worked harder in obscurity than they did in visibility? That is not coincidence, that is pressure. Because silence builds focus, but attention tests it. Now you are being watched. Now your actions are being observed. Now your journey is becoming visible to others. And with that visibility comes a new challenge. Can you stay the same person in public that you were in private? Can you still show up with the same discipline when applause replaces doubt? Can you still stay grounded when people start attaching expectations to your name? Because this is where real identity is tested, not when you are unknown, but when you are recognized. And here is what most people fail to realize: success does not change who you are instantly. It reveals what you were already becoming in private. If you were disciplined in silence, success amplifies your discipline. If you were distracted in silence, success amplifies your distraction. If you were focused in silence, success expands your focus. That is why this phase is so critical, because everything you built without attention is now being tested under attention. And the challenge is simple but powerful. Do not let visibility change your foundation. You must remember the days when no one was watching. You must remember the nights when there was no applause. You must remember the moments when you continued without encouragement, because those moments are your real identity, not the reaction you receive now. And there is something else that happens at this stage. People begin to attach themselves to your progress. Some genuinely support you, some simply observe, and some quietly compare themselves to you. And if you are not grounded, you start reacting to all of it. But the strongest version of you does not react, it stays centered, because you understand something most people miss. Your journey is not a performance. It is a process, and processes are not meant to be rushed for approval. They are meant to be respected for growth. Now, here is where discipline becomes even more important than before, because now you are not just fighting laziness or doubt. You are fighting distraction disguised as opportunity. Opportunities will come, invitations will come, conversations will come, conversations will increase, but not everything that comes toward you is meant to move with you. And wisdom is knowing what to keep and what to ignore, because if you try to carry everything that comes with success, you will eventually drop the very thing that created it. So you must protect your focus the same way you protected your dream in the beginning, with intention, with awareness, with control, and most importantly, with community, because humility keeps you close to your foundation. It reminds you that what you have is not the final destination. It is just a stage in your evolution. And if you can stay grounded in this phase, if you can handle recognition without losing discipline, if you can accept attention without losing focus, then something powerful happens. You don't Jew. Grow, you stabilize, and stability is what separates temporary success from lasting legacy. So when results begin to show, do not stop building what made them possible. Do not trade discipline for validation. Do not exchange focus for attention, because what you built in silence must survive in the light. Keep your foundation stronger than your fame.